Refugees! Refugees! Immigrants! Haitians! Muslims! Mexicans! Africans!
We're here today to denounce all forms of hate and racism in the face of deep-seated systemic inequality and the rise of the extreme right, both globally as well as here. We remember with sadness Anthony Griffin, an unarmed black teen who was shot and killed by police on November 11th, 30 years ago. Though we are in a new era, racism is not something new for many marginalized communities. To date, 170 groups from across Quebec have endorsed the call-out for this demonstration, including anti-colonial, anti-racist, feminist housing, and student groups. Our presence here highlights the importance of unity in our struggles. We are here to speak out against racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, colonialism, sexism, transphobia, and all forms of hate encouraged by the far right. We are here, yes, we are here to stand up for a society without borders, based on solidarity and inclusiveness. We denounce capitalism and austerity, which are causes themselves, not immigrants or people of color, which are at the root of poverty and growing social insecurity. Through solidarity across borders, we hear about non-status people being deported and detained on a weekly basis, despite Montreal having been declared a sanctuary city last February. Members of the Non-Status Women's Collective, for instance, continue in their demands to have their status regularized so they can live without fear and so their families and children can have access to the same rights and benefits that many of us take for granted. Meanwhile, many refugees who have been forced to cross irregularly, not too far from here at the Lacole border crossing, are being intimidated and given misinformation. We denounce the systemic inequality. We call for open borders and an end to deportations now.
I'll just say quickly in English, we're here today to walk against hate and racism. We're not witness to singular or unique isolated events of racism, but rather we are witness to a deep-seated racism that is crystallizing itself today. Whether it's the Charter of Values, whether it's the election of Donald Trump, whether it's the rise of the far-right parties in France and Europe, and the recent adoption of law of Bill 62 are just demonstrations of a continuity of racism here in Quebec. And we're here to walk together, largely in large numbers, to denounce clearly and openly hate and racism, and to make racists afraid again.
I think there is too much intolerance in our society, and we need to gather up and to show people that we are against Law 62 and we are against intolerance, and we need to be stronger together in Quebec.
So what have you felt since this Law 62 thing came into being? What have your feelings sort of been on that?
The feeling is that I'm already tired for a long fight that I am facing with my friend because we are in the push against the government, and it's a sad thing because this law is not the solution for the problem we have in the society. So, yes.
And what do you think the problem is in the society?
It's the dialogue, it's the discussion between us. We need to build bridge, to bring us together instead of focusing on what divides us.
Parce que tout ce monde-là n'aideront jamais les vrais pauvres. Ils vont juste s'aider eux autres mêmes.
Cette manifestation-là,
Je pense que les gens qui passent trop de temps à faire la victime, puis à faire semblant, puis à mentir à tout le monde. Identifier si tu veux me parler, j'ai rien à te dire. Hein, t'es cassé dans la vie, c'est besoin de cash, ça fait. Va te partir une compagnie. Essaye de confronter le monde, toi là, fais attention. Tu veux pas le japonais, ça c'est 25 ans que j'ai passé.
manifestation.
Fais attention à ce que tu fais. OK.
C'est la provocation.
Si je dis que c'est correct d'être blanc, j'ai le droit de le
Ils
faire.
viennent partir.
Aucune
Ils nous disent que c'est OK d'être blanc, c'est systématique blanc.
Je ne suis pas en carte.
Immigrants! Allez, marcheurs, faites quoi? C'est le 30e anniversaire de la mort de Anthony Griffin, assassiné par la police.
No more racism! No more racism! We need peace!
Tout le monde déteste les racistes.
So could you just explain a little bit about the group, what the goals are, where you guys are based, things like this?
Well, we're a Marxist group. We're based. We have an office in Toronto. That's where our center is. But we have a very big group in Montreal. Actually, we're getting an office next year in Montreal because we're expanding so quickly. So our general position is, I mean, we're completely opposed to racism, Islamophobia, this anti-immigrant, this rise of this far right, extreme right discourse that you've seen become somewhat normalized actually in society. A lot of these right-wing parties or nationalist parties are using kind of Quebec history to justify being against immigrants or something like this. But we believe it's not just like bad individuals that are doing this randomly, but we believe that it comes from, it's completely normal in a capitalist system that happens. There's been an economic crisis that's been going on for a while, since 2008, and people's lives are not doing so good, you know? There's a falling living standards. They say that there's a first generation that's going to live worse than our parents, and everyone knows that there's problems in society, and we believe we need to propose a socialist solution, that the problem is not the Muslims or the immigrants or the Haitians fleeing Trump over the border. That's not the problem. The problem is, we know the problem. It's a few number of people that actually control and own the vast majority of the wealth and the productive economy, the factories, the mines, and the banks and whatnot. And these people ruin the economy. They're making workers pay for the crisis. The middle class people that used to have good jobs and whatnot. These things are starting to become a thing of the past. There's generalized austerity in the public sector. There's a lot of attacks on private sector jobs as well. So we basically think that this has to not just be a fight against racism. Yes, of course, that's why we're here today. But it also has to clearly make the link that this is actually completely natural to happen in capitalism. And unless you point the blame at who is actually to blame, that the capitalists and their system are to blame, then we're kind of missing the point. And we're not going to propose an alternative because people are looking for an alternative. We don't just believe in doing what Hillary Clinton did. That's basically saying Donald Trump's a racist and America's already great, so you basically forget about it, everything's fine. That clearly didn't work. We believe that we got to propose a bold alternative to people that are upset and they're looking for something, right?
Right.
So that's what
How do you guys propose to actually achieve this solution that you're trying to propose here?
Well, obviously we're a relatively small group. Like I said, we're growing fairly quickly, but we're a relatively small group. We believe that we need to fight for socialist ideas in the movements, in the unions, in student unions, in the movement in general, and we believe that as things evolve, it will prove what we're saying more and more, right? And eventually that becomes a majority opinion within the workers and within society. This happens many times. That's what a revolution is, right? And then eventually we believe a revolution's coming. Even in sleepy old Canada, a revolution's coming. People think it's not possible. It's totally possible, actually. I believe that is totally in the cards, maybe not in the next year or two, but down the road, people's living conditions get worse and worse. It's like a pressure cooker. It builds up and it explodes into, we've already seen our fair share of mass movements here in Quebec, but that can even go further than that, as we've seen happen in many countries around the world already recently. And that is an opportunity for the creation of a brand new type of system, a new society, in which instead of a tiny minority owning and controlling all the wealth and productivity, we can have it controlled and owned democratically. We can decide what we want to do, and we can give good living standards to everybody, right?
Right. So quick, how do you think this revolution will actually be possible right now? I feel like there's not enough people that would be willing to do something like that in this moment. So
not now.
What is like the road?
We don't say that a revolution. We don't go and say that we want a revolution tomorrow. We don't think that's going to happen. We want a revolution. We believe that's the only solution, and we believe it's actually going to happen, whether or not you want it, you or me or anybody else wants it or not. It's not Marxists that create a revolution. We go around and tell everybody, hey, let's do a revolution. That's not how it happens. It's capitalism that creates the conditions of discontent that lead to a massive uprising of regular people that have had enough. So yeah, today most people don't agree with that. Most people are not on board with that. But we believe that that sentiment is growing. It will grow, and it will lead to a point where that is an inevitability.
There's a lot of people who fear this violent revolution idea. So could you address that, please?
Oh, I didn't say violent revolution.
So explain that.
We believe in fighting for peaceful revolution, and I believe it's actually possible that the discontent in the workers, if it is canalized and organized in the right direction, will neutralize mostly any resistance from the capitalists. I think almost completely. I mean, even it was the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution last week, which people generally consider to be a bloody affair. But what people don't know is actually the actual revolution that happened on November 7th, October 25th by the old calendar, was entirely bloodless, because the government of Kerensky was entirely unpopular, and the Soviets had a massive majority support amongst the population. Right? So the act of the workers actually taking power and starting to build socialism was a bloodless affair. The blood occurred later in a civil war where there was basically fascist white armies supported by imperialist countries like Canada that we sent troops there to fight against the Soviets. So did many countries, 21 countries actually. That's when the bloodshed started, not with the revolution. I mean, a revolution can be a massive democratic peaceful thing. It's completely possible.
But what if there are still like a significant amount of capitalists around at that time?
Significant amount of capitalists. We believe that the capitalists, we don't believe in visiting violence on them unless they take up arms. That's the basic thing. You can have the same rights as everybody else. You do not have the right to own everything anymore. You have the right to a good job, good living standards, lifelong education, free healthcare, free transportation. You have the right. You have amazing rights. You do not have the right to own everything and exploit people anymore. That would be what we would take away from them. And if they take up arms, then I would hope that they can. Their resistance could be crushed without violence. But I mean, who would deny that that would be necessary in that situation?
So what if people like appreciate the sort of anti-racist message that you guys are proposing, and then they sort of stop at this revolution thing and they start to doubt? Like, what do you say to these people like that appreciate half the message but are sort of reluctant with the rest?
It is true. We know that only a minority of people agree with what we're saying now. Like I said, we believe that more and more I can already see it in the number of years. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've seen it. More and more people agree with us, more and more, and I think our message is starting to make more and more sense to people, and it's proven to be correct with the evolution of events. So it's true that most people don't agree with us now, and that's okay. We can have a discussion with them. Maybe they'll buy our magazine, they'll check our shit out, they'll come to an event, and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, that's cool, but I don't know about that, you know? I don't agree with everything. Okay, fine, fair enough. You know, keep supporting us if you want, come out to our stuff, but maybe they don't want to get involved. Maybe they will get involved in the future. Maybe they won't. That's not for everybody. Not everyone will agree with us right now. But I think as history unrolls before our eyes, I think what we're saying will be proven to be correct. So that's our general position. I mean, not everybody's going to agree. That's just a fact of politics. Yeah. But
do you have any final thoughts before we close up?
I don't know. Yeah. We're Socialist Fight Back. This is the paper we have. This one's specifically talking about the question of refugees. It comes out every month. You can get it online if you're interested in getting involved to fight for socialism, against racism, and against capitalism and all of this shit that comes along with it. You can get involved. We actually have events coming up this week against racism. So you can check our Facebook pages, La Riposte Socialiste, that's the French one, or Fight Back. for the English one online. And you can find information about all of our events and our group in general.